Hi, my name's Syndel, and this is my guide to Delve for PoE 1. It's going to cover a little bit of everything. We'll start with the basics, and then we'll go on to things like paths, layouts, walls, hidden nodes, finding the paths for those hidden nodes, making currency, atlas skills, endgame Delve strategy, and bosses. I'm recording this on Mirage League in March 2026. Things may change if you're looking at this in the future, but this should cover pretty much everything, and most of what I'm talking about is going to be pretty much set in stone. I wouldn't expect much of this to change. For reference, I'm using Helmbreaker's Raised Spectres build for this, so if you're interested in the build at all, make sure you look that up. I think that's pretty much everything. So for this, there's a couple of resources you should be aware of. If you're not already using it, you'd probably be using Path of Building for your build. There's also Craft of Exile, which I'll talk about briefly in how we craft with resonators and fossils. And you also maybe want to think about Neversink's Filter Blade, which is the filter that we're using. So if you want things to appear on your game as they do in mine, then you'll want to be referencing that. You want to be using that. I also use Awaken PoE Trade, which allows you to set up a hotkey, which can be useful for assessing the value of items. You can just press a button and it will show you the relative mods they're tiering, and you'll be able to search through the macro for that. So, first things first, we have to unlock Delve. If you're watching this video, you've probably already seen this, but we'll unlock it anyway. First thing you need to do is you need to get to Act 4 in Part 1, and you need to get in Highgate. Highgate is the town for Act 4. Now you want to travel from the waypoint or from the starting position to the top side of Highgate, top left side of Highgate, and you want to speak to Nico. Nico will have an exclamation mark above his head. By talking to him, he'll give you a quest to go into the mines, which are just here, and find some sulfite nodes. Sulfite is your resource, the resource you expend in order to access the Delve encounters. So once you've unlocked Nico, you'll start getting these voltaxic sulfite veins popping up in your maps. Once you've reached maps, you can find these in any map. If you pick the nodes on the atlas, you'll find more of them. If you click on them, you will get an increase to an amount of sulfite. You'll also get a pop-up in the top right hand corner showing you how much you have at the present moment in time, and Nico will turn up to say hi. Once you have some sulfite, you can travel to the mine encampment from any waypoint. Just go to a waypoint and click on the click to travel to the mine encampment button. It will take you to the azurite mine. Once you arrive at the mine, there are a few things that you can interact with. First is Nico, and then there's the voltaxic generator. You get a stash and a guild stash, and you also get the subterranean chart. When clicking on the subterranean chart, you will see a grid like this. It has lots of different branching pathways and lots of nodes. This key terminology here that you need to be aware of that we're going to use throughout is there are paths which connect nodes, and there are the nodes themselves, which are the things that you can travel to. When you're first starting, you'll notice that one of them glows like this. This is the tutorial node. It just teaches you how to play. It encourages you to collect azurite, which is the other main resource in Delve. But you can go anywhere you want. You're not limited. The only thing that you have to be aware of is that the node that you select has to be connected to your main path. Your main path starts in the middle. It can go anywhere depending on where you want to go from. If you hold off from doing Delve until you're further in the game, you will have an automatically dug mine shaft right through the center, which looks a bit like this. You can see that I and most people who do Delve will probably wait until they get to maps in order to actually exploit this mechanic properly. So I didn't take any of the branching paths. You don't even have to do the tutorial one. It doesn't force you to do it. But what you're looking for at the start is you're looking for these azurite nodes. The lower down that you go, the better the nodes will be. But essentially all you really want to do is start getting this resource so that you can start upgrading your delve stats, which we'll go into a bit later. Traveling to a node is pretty simple. You find a node that you can travel to, you hover over it with your mouse and you'll see this dotted line towards the node. You click on the node and it will take you into the mine and it will place you next to the minecart. You'll have a little circle here that says start delve. You want to move into that circle to start the delve and you'll see that the minecart starts moving. If it moves too far away from you, it will just stop. You'll see that on the minimap here, it's just slowing down to a crawl. And you'll just be left there. You don't need to move, you're not in danger at all. But ideally you want to try and keep up with the minecart. If you go ahead of the minecart will move slightly faster. So here I am just going ahead of where the minecart goes, but be careful because you might end up going into darkness, and darkness is quite dangerous. You want to, the minecart goes on a predefined path, and you want to make sure that you're following that path. Once you've arrived at a node, there's sometimes an encounter, there's sometimes not. For Azurite encounters, you will always get this pop-up here saying Pure Living Azurite. If you click on that, it will start the encounter. Nice big effect. And then enemies will start to spawn, and so long as you can kill all the enemies, the event will complete successfully. For Azurite nodes, once the event is complete, Azurite spawns around the cart. In this case, because it's a very low level node, we only had one spawn and it was only 4 Azurite. Oh, I picked up some more there actually, there was another 8 there. Different nodes have different strengths. There are a couple of Azurite nodes we can see here, but they've got numbers on them. The 1s are the lowest level, the 3s are the highest level. If I select a 3, I will get a different encounter to if I select a 1. The 3 encounters usually include a 2-stage boss, which I will demonstrate hopefully. Again, we've arrived at the node and we click the Pure Living Azurite button. So it can be kind of harder to pick out in the later maps, but I will try and show you the boss once it spawns. So this black puddle here shows that the boss is going to spawn here. And here we see the boss. So this is a unique level monster. This one's the Gorgle Terror, and it's just spawned in that little area there. We get it to half HP, it has an invulnerability phase, it goes away and starts dive bombing the arena. And he's back. And he's dead. You'll see the Azurite pops up in nodes around the outside. So if I walk around the outside, I can start picking it up. If you're not seeing Azurite spawn, it's probably because you've got the loot hidden on the ground. The default button for that is Z, which hides the loot on the ground. So once you've started gathering your Azurite, you enter into the basic gameplay loop of Delve. We're spending Sulfite, the resource that we gain in the maps, on traveling to nodes, and then we spend the Azurite in improving our ability to travel in Delve. To improve our ability to travel in Delve, we need to go to the Voltaxic generator in the mine encampment. Once you click on this, you will see that you have an Azurite stash on the top left, or yeah, top middle of the panel. And you get a bunch of things here that you can upgrade for a cost of sulfite at the bottom here. Nico will give you missions. You'll see them pop up on the right hand side. Those are probably the things you want to be spending the Azurite on, and if you want to play this pretty brainlessly, I would probably recommend prioritizing those things. Our key upgrades that we have right now are Sulfite Capacity, Darkness Resistance, and Light Radius. So these are basically the big things that will make your life in Delve a little bit easier. When you start, you'll basically have none of them, so upgrade them. It's a good idea. The main one that I usually upgrade first is the Sulfite Capacity, because that just allows you to spend longer in Delve between having to go back to maps and gather more sulfite. Darkness Resistance and Light Radius are both very important though, because darkness will absolutely kill you if you don't have these at a quite high level. In general, if you've skipped your delve into maps, then you will probably be at the point where trying to do a delve will have you majorly negative at Darkness Resistance and Light Radius, which is not a very good time. So to demonstrate why darkness resistance is quite important, I've just gone into a random node here, and if I walk into the darkness, you'll see I start getting this blurry edge to my screen. I'm taking quite a lot of damage here. That damage increases over time, and it increases very fast if your darkness resistance is very low. You'll see now I'm at half HP, now I'm at quarter HP. If you head back into the light, you will immediately get cured of the darkness degen. That's degenerative buff or a debuff, and then your health will recover naturally. There are a couple of ways you can deal with darkness. The first is by having the resistance, which just makes it so you can stand in the darkness for longer. The second is by using a flare, which we have in the bottom right hand corner here. If you put down a flare, it creates a light area around you. One of the important things to note is that monsters are invulnerable in the darkness. So if I walk into the darkness and I try attacking this minion with my monsters, it does nothing. That minion is invulnerable until I cast a flare, at which point my minions can kill it. This is quite important in the later delves, because if you head into the darkness, it's very easy to get trapped by minions. And you'll see here, I can't move past these minions very easily. They can do quite a lot of damage to me if I don't have the right resistances up. If I use a quartz flask here, I get phasing. Quartz flasks are very, very useful in Delve because they allow you to phase through monsters. If you're traveling quickly, I recommend you have a quartz flask just so you can get past the monsters in the darkness. Those are the basics of the darkness mechanic. You'll notice that the minecart, when it's traveling, it will go on a certain direction, but there are also other directions that you can take. These are paths that branch from the main pathway. So whilst the minecart is going up to the north there, I can actually go to the south here and into the darkness. The minecart will never travel into this area, but I can travel into this area. There are additional monsters there, and there can be additional loot. I'll go into more detail on branching pathways and hidden loot later. So back at the generator, we've gained some more azurite, so now I can spend some resources. If you look at the other things in this area, we have two consumables. We have flares and we have dynamite. Dynamite can be used to break open walls in Delve, which I'll go into in a minute. And flares can be used to light the path, as we've just seen in the darkness. You can click this button to craft flares individually, or you can max out either one of your flares or dynamite just by shift clicking, and it will give you your full amount. Nice little optimization, a few clicks saves you a little bit of time. You can upgrade your maximum number of flares. You start with only 3, which is very, very little. You can also upgrade your maximum number of dynamite. You also start with 3 there. You can upgrade the duration, which is how long the flare lasts before it disappears. And you can upgrade the radius. All of these upgrades are quite important. Once you get into the flow of Delve, you probably don't need duration that much. Radius caps out at 150%. Depending on your depth, you might have to spend more azurite to get to that cap. When you're farming Delve properly, it's not unusual for you to be in this situation where you have everything capped out. Your darkness resistance capped out at 75%, your light radius at 150%, and your radius of flares at 150%. The dynamite damage scales pretty much infinitely, I believe, so that's one way you can get a little bit of extra damage as well, but generally, if you're just casually going through Delve, you won't need that. If we've got this far, then we know how Delve works. We know how to get to nodes, we know how to get the resource, we know how to scale up our darkness resistance, and we know how to scale up our number of flares, our dynamite. Where should we go? That's kind of the next question that we have to answer. To understand that, we kind of need to understand a little bit about how the nodes work, how biomes work, and how, in general, the mine is supposed to progress. The long and short, the short version is basically that the mine is infinite. You can go as long as you want. You can go in any direction. You can go right, left, down. If you head upwards, then you'll hit the surface. Don't do that. But the key thing to understand there is that the lower you go, the higher the monster level becomes. You'll see that if I hover over a node here, the monster level starts at 34. And if I go down just a few nodes, it gets to 38. It continues on this sort of path where an additional level of depth will increase the monster level by a little bit, basically up until you end up at the end of the automatic track, which is here. That'll give you monster level 80. You can go lower than that, and eventually you'll get to monster level 83, which is where the monster level caps out. Once you reach this level, biomes will start receiving a little bonus on the bottom left-hand side. So you'll see for this biome here, monsters have a 27% chance to ignite, freeze, and shock on hit, and there are a bunch of bonuses to quantity, rarity, and pack size. These are the scaling difficulty mechanics for Delve. So the deeper you go, the harder it gets, but also the rewards increase slightly. In general, it will get harder much quicker, then the rewards will increase in value. Once you reach this sort of level, around 200 to 250, you can probably stop going down if you're just looking to make profit in Delve. If you want to push your build, if you want to make sure your build is, really, really strong in Delve, you can then, go even deeper. There is no limit to the depth you can go, and the rewards will keep increasing. So at the top level of Delve, when you first unlock it, you'll notice that you're in this area that doesn't have a biome necessarily. It's just minecart area. This is because this is basically the tutorial area. There's nothing special about these nodes really, or this biome. It only really starts once you start getting lower. But there are differences in the nodes themselves, so we'll cover a few of them just in this moment here. First one you'll likely see is this one, which is just a contains items. If you're familiar with any of the other mechanics from Path of Exile, you'll kind of understand what this one is immediately. It just contains items. It's not any specific type of items. This is contrasted with nodes like this one, which says it contains jewelry, nodes like this one, which says it contains armor, and nodes like this one, which say it contains currency. Again, the rewards that you get for these will scale based on the depth that you go. It doesn't necessarily improve your chances to get tier 0 currency, so take that as for what you will. Items and quantity is always going to be your best bet for things like divines, things just that are higher rarity. You will find more exalts though, you will find more alks, you will find more transmutes, alterations, chances, all of those sorts of things in currency nodes. As you travel down, you'll start to see these biomes appear, and in these biomes you'll start to see more interesting nodes like this one. This one is these are pretty easy to find. Just by scanning the biomes, you'll see that it shows up in a slightly different color. It's got an icon that doesn't look like any of the icons around it. It's not one of these gold icons or one of the blue azurite or almond icons. This one is a Monsters from Beyond. It'll spawn you into an encounter which has Beyond monsters. As you go deeper still, you'll start getting more interesting biomes with more interesting modifiers. You'll start finding magma fissures here. Magma fissures can have these contains fossils nodes. These are one of the main resources that you get outside of those two core resources, azurite and sulfite. These are crafting currency. So just like alchemy orbs or alteration orbs or anything like that, you can use these to generate items. But we'll go over how fossil crafting works in just a minute. So in this section, I want to talk a little bit about paths and layouts and how they work. It can be a little bit confusing, especially if you're new to Delve, to understand how these sort of works. But the basic principle behind them is that each of these squares in this biome constitute an area as such. When you're generating a map by clicking to select a node, you generate a path from one node to another through areas. Your first area, your starting area, will be the area that your cart starts in. So it'll be basically the surrounding area of just this area. You'll notice that when you're traveling to an area, you have to travel through another area. So for this one, if I was traveling to this Azurite node, I would be traveling from just the minecart to the Azurite square. But if I'm traveling to this currency node here, then I have to take this corner through this square. To try and see the squares a little bit more clearly, I've shown you just an isolated square here on this abyssal depths biome. You'll notice that there's a black border here, and this can count as effectively just a square. And a square can either contain a path, a node, or it can be empty. Kind of critical to understand that. It's quite important when trying to work out how far you'll need to go and where there can be other bits and pieces. So if we follow this minecart path, we'll see that we travel from this area that we're in right now. If I press V, you'll see we're still in the minecart area. And if I continue traveling up this way, we eventually get to a point where the minecart will turn. And it'll be at this corner here. So you see, if we press V now, our little indicator telling us where we are has moved to this point here. And if we continue down this path, it can zigzag a little bit. We get to the node and you'll see that our indicator has switched to here. So we'll do this encounter a little bit and then talk about why that's significant and why we need to keep track of the amount of nodes. A note on encounters in general, some of them are a lot longer than other ones, some of them are just instant. The encounter finishes when you see that the icon above the cart says select new location, or you just have that prompt, that pop up. It's a good way of knowing when the encounter's done. Like this one just says choose a destination. Oh, and when you reach a node, you have to click on the chests, if there are chests, in order to actually access the loot. Same is true if you're going to fossils. So we have arrived at our destination. We have a path. The path backwards is now lit by this chain, which is quite useful because we don't need flares or anything to access this. Now, I spoke a little bit about branching pathways. You'll see on the mini-map here, well, the overlay map, we've got a bunch of different areas that we can choose from as sort of side passages to explore. If I press V real quick, you'll see that we're in this little node here. It's interesting to note this because a dynamite wall will always appear. There will always be at least one dynamite wall in any node that hasn't got an occupied node. So this is an area, a node, but it doesn't have an icon on the map. It doesn't have a destination. I know that there will be at least one dynamite wall here, and if we explore these side passages, we should be able to find it. I'm just skipping everything else for the sake of clarity right now. It's going to be in the top one, isn't it? Yes. So you'll see that on our overlay map, we've now got this little icon for a wall. If I put a flare down, you can now see the fractured wall. Fractured walls can be destroyed by dynamite, which is your resource here. So I put down a dynamite, it breaks open the wall, and inside we see that we've got a bit of loot. These can be anything, but they tend to be either 1 to 3 additional nodes, which can contain fossils, resonators, some bits and pieces that are going to be useful down the line. I knew that that would be there in that area because the area on the map doesn't have a node on it. It's very, very useful for trying to find those dynamite walls. These layouts are also fixed, so if ever you find yourself traveling from the bottom right to the left, then you will always, if you see this layout, if you start to see this set of passages, you'll know that the fractured wall is in the top right one, or the top one. I also want to talk a little bit about cost, because that's something to be aware of. It doesn't really make a big impact on how you play the game, but you'll see that the distance that you travel, how many empty nodes you travel through, affects the cost in sulfite. So if I'm traveling just, let's see, if I'm traveling just this one jump, so from this square to this square, it'll cost me 482 sulfite. If I'm traveling down and then to this square, it'll cost me 915, which, you know, worthwhile being aware of. It doesn't make much difference if you're farming Delve, because you'll get a lot of sulfite from your maps. When you're traveling along a path in Delve, you will often see little pieces of loot on the sides of the path, such as this large flare cache. This will give you a bunch of flares, which can help you sustain flares if you're going on a longer Delve. The further you go into the darkness, generally, the more interesting those nodes become. You can find them on the main path, but you can also go into the side paths and find some. Here's a dynamite cache, so that shows you can just restock all your resources just by going into the darkness a little bit. If I head into this one, you'll see that there's another dynamite cache. And which one was it? Was it this one? You'll see in this one, there's a glowing little statue here. This is a metallic fossilized remains. This will drop a metallic fossil. So I click it and I pick up the metallic fossil. This is another one of those resources that we can use in resonator crafting. So in this section, I want to talk about finding hidden nodes. You will occasionally see on the subterranean chart that there are nodes that aren't connected to any other node. These can be quite interesting. They can be quite rewarding. If you find fossils in an unconnected node, it's generally a very good fossil. It's generally something you want to go for. In this case, there's this currency node that we can see isn't connected to any other node. To understand how to work out where the connection is going to be in these, you need to know a little bit about the boxes that I mentioned around the nodes themselves. So you'll see that this is a good example because it's got an abyssal depths biome here, but it's only one tile. So you can very easily see this square around it. Now, the rules for these connections are a little bit complicated, but we'll try and cover all of them. The first thing that we need to be aware of is that the only legal connections to a node come in either one path, 3 paths, or 4 paths. So, for example, this node here has 3 paths coming off of it. It goes top, right, and bottom. If we look at this node, we can see that this node only has, well, this one has 3 paths, but this one only has 1 path going upwards. Those are your legal connections. You never have 2s. So looking at this already, I can see that I've got a 2 here. And this 2 connection going from this node down here and up here means that this will probably, almost certainly, be the connection to the hidden node over here. The other rules, though, you can stop there. That's like all you really need to know in order to find these hidden nodes, because already I can deduce I've got to start from here. That's the main thing that you need to take away from that. The other rules around it do help, though, in the instance where you don't have a 2 node. What if it's a 3? What if it's a 4? So the first thing you need to be aware of is that a hidden node can't connect to just a path node, and it has to go through a tile. So I can already tell that this one doesn't connect on the left, because it would have to connect to a tile that has a path node on it and not a node on it. I already know that it won't go left. It also can't connect directly to another node. it has to go through a empty tile first. So I know that this one won't be to the north, and I know that it won't be to the south. I would also already be able to rule these out, because that would require these nodes having 2 connections. So I know that whatever happens, this has to go right first. Because it then can't connect to this node in any other way, I know that the path here is going to be just left to right. So in this example, we have now traveled to this node. You can see that just traveling to the node doesn't unlock the hidden path. We have to actually go into the darkness and find the hidden path ourselves. So we've arrived at the node. You'll notice that in general, the directions from a node will mirror what you actually see in here. The bottom right is down, so back towards the node I've just come from is down, or bottom right on the mini map. And then to the left-hand side on this map will be to the bottom left. So that's where I'm going to search. So to do this, you have to go into the darkness. You will need some level of darkness resist for this, or you will need a lot of flares. And we can see that already just going in a straight line, we've come up against the fractured wall. So these fractured walls are a little different than the other ones. The best way of dealing with these ones is to break them open with dynamite, and then instead of going through the fractured wall, you want to head backwards. You want to head back to the minecart, and then when you click it, you will see that it's unlocked the path. And just as we predicted, we have a straight line connecting these 2 nodes. We can now travel there. I'm just making sure that it is actually going the way that I think it should be going. And we end up at a node. And this will be the currency node. We can check V just to show that. And because everyone wants to see the loot, we'll do the encounter. There is only 1 chest here, it's going to be bad. Yep, a single chaos. Very much worth. So I've got a more difficult example here, which is one of the ones that people often get stuck on. Say you wanted to travel to this contains jewelry node. You'll see that it exists in a square. We draw the imaginary square around it in our heads. We see that there is, in the square above it, there is a path. It cannot connect that way. We see to the square to the left of it that there is a single path. If we connected this one, it would become a 2 path. That would be illegal, so it can't be that way. And if we look to the bottom, we see the same situation, where if we're drawing that imaginary box around it, it would lead to joining an existing path. That means that this can only connect to the right. There are 2 nodes on the right that it could then connect with, this one on the bottom and this one on the right. Connecting to this one would make this one a 2 node, which would make it illegal. Maybe a little bit of a caveat there, but connecting to this one would make it a 4 node, which would make it legal, so it must connect just across there. And we can travel to that node, and we can prove that that's the case. So because we are looking at it, and we know that it's to the left, that's going to be to the bottom left for us. And there's the fractured wall. We've blown up the fractured wall. With enough darkness resist, you don't even need to spend a flare to do this. And we can now travel to that hidden node. And we get a necromancy site with 3 jewelry nodes. And I'll just brainstorm a few more for good measure. So we have a contains fossils node here. Again, can't connect to the south, can't connect to the right, can't connect to the left, has to go up. We know that these 2 are next to each other. So there's a 3 node here, and there's a 3 node here. This could go up to this 3 node, or it could go up, left to this node. We'll try and prove this because it's a fossil node, and it's probably worth grabbing anyway. So if it was at this one, then it would be down, which would be bottom left. So let's have a look bottom left. And there it is. There's our fractured wall. But in this case, it could have also connected to this node because this is a 3. It's got 1, 2, 3 connections, and it could have gone left, left, down. Let's have a look at what our fossil is for our efforts. Got layouts. So this is one of the fossil encounters. This is one of the rarer encounters that you'll find. Fossil encounters don't show up very often. Because it's in a petrified forest, we've got this sort of Val encounter. So if I press this lever, we will start getting enemies spawn. There are 4 levers around this one. I will just skip through the fight. So once you've activated all 4 levers, you'll have a final encounter where the boss will spawn of this encounter. He spawns in the middle, and then he just jumps around for a little bit. He's kind of hard to see with all the effects going off, but then he dies. It's weird, the fossil that spawns, this bloodstain fossil, will spawn back at the cart for this encounter. Not really sure why, but you can pick it up there. And we can see it in the inventory there. So now that we understand how Delve works, how to get to all of the nodes that we want to go to, and how to explore the darkness and the way that things line up on the map, really the question that everyone wants the answer to, how do we make money from this? How do we make currency? This is kind of the big difficult part of Delve, because everyone's going to be competing to try and make money, especially in Trade League. The key things to be aware of in Delve when trying to make money is that Delve has unique items, and it has unique stats and unique affixes that only apply to Delve items. To see some of these, we want to look for nodes like these, which say contain cold items and contain fire items. There's also one over here which is contain lightning items. These are your basic entry level Delve specific affix items. You'll see I've got one selected here for contains cold items, so we'll just go there now and see what we get. So once you've arrived at your node, this is our contains cold item node, you'll see that some of the chests around here, some of the chests around here have different names. They'll be frosty rather than the normal sort of abandoned or lost. If we click on them, and if you have Filter Blades loot filter, then you'll see that these show up in blue. We want to click on these items, pick them up, get the fossils as well at the same time. These items are guaranteed to have a cold modifier, and they also will have what's known as a subterranean affix, the subterranean name attached to the cold modifier. So if I hold Alt on this, you can see that this one has a prefix, and that prefix is subterranean and increased cold damage and added cold damage. These are your sort of entry level items. They will have these specific mods. These mods can be useful in recombinating into better gear, or if you get extremely lucky, you might just have good gear. If you have the trade macro enabled, you can press your trade macro hotkey. You can select the mods that are relevant, such as this increased cold damage. Maybe look at level of socketed melee gems as well. And we can see that there's one on trade here for 5 divines. This mod, it probably isn't worth anything. No one is going to buy this. Some of them might be valuable though. If we have a look for some of our other ones, we might find something useful. Let's just pick up the armaments and the jewelry. This one, the of the underground suffix here, is the one that's the unique one to Delve. It's curse enemies with frostbite on hit. If you search that on trade, you will find that there are quite a lot of these, but they range, there's only 44 of them with this level of resistance, and we might be able to get 5 Chaos Early League for something like this. The key ones you want to look for are the ones that are used in the builds at the moment if you're on Trade League. So if you are doing a build that, if there is a build that requires max mana, max increased mana, that's one you can also get from Delve. That one currently at the time of recording is going for between 3 and 5 divines per item. Just the modifier on its own can be quite useful because people will use it to recombinate into more expensive gear, more useful gear, because just having the modifier can be great. Another way of making currency in Delve is to travel to these special biomes. You'll occasionally come across these biomes that have little gold borders around them, like this primeval one. There is one for Val Outposts, there is one for these primeval ones, Primeval Ruins, and there is one for Abyss. By going into these, you'll get a special encounter where you will have to travel underground into a dark area, even more underground, into a dark area, into a sub area. And there will be an opportunity to open some special crates there. Those special crates are very good for bubblegum currency, so it'll be good for your chromas, your fusings, your alchemy, orbs of alchemy, those sorts of things. Not too great for anything else. They won't have any special delve modifiers on the item. If you're looking to get lucky with a very nice corrupt ring or something like that, you could potentially find one here. Not a great chance, if I'm honest. You mainly want to do this to buff up your bubblegum currency. You can find a decent amount of chaos through these as well. They're almost always worth doing. So as you arrive at this node, the cart will arrive as normal, but then you'll get a City Chambers button to interact with it. If you click the button, you'll get this transition to your Primeval Chamber or something like it, if I don't die real quick. We click that button and we get into this sub area. The sub area will have two paths off the center. This is the same for both the Abyss and the Val Outpost one as well. And these two areas will loop around left and right. What we want to do is we want to go to the extremes of those loops, but we can check the corners as we go. So I'll check this corner here, and I can see that this one's got a Pocked Riches, which contains 2 chaos, which is quite nice. And as I head down here, we see that we can stand on this to create a bit of light, which allows our minions to go to work. And we get 2 boxes here. We've got one for Bloodstained Charts and one for Vital Armor. This will be Health Armor, and this will be Maps. We can loop around the other way now. I can go around the outside and check this corner as well. And this one, we see we've got a bunch of other boxes here. If you don't like standing in the middle to get the light fully illuminated, you can just drop a flare. And if you've got a radius on the flare, then it will light up the whole area, and then you won't die to the monsters if you can kill them before they kill you. You see these ones are a bit nasty. They're actually taking down all my energy shield. But we can open all these crates, and we get some Azurite from the nodes, we get some maps, we get some chaos, we get some vowels, if I had any inventory space left, because I failed to clear it. And the last bit we need to cover for just general delving is the resonators. If you have bought a stash tab from the store for delve, you'll see a screen like this. If not, you'll just have all of these fossils in a tab somewhere. Fossils come in lots of different flavors. When you're crafting with them, they provide modifiers that change the way the outcome of the craft works. So, for example, if I was to hover over this one, the fundamental fossil, if you were to use this one in a craft, it would result in creating an item that has a higher chance to have attribute modifiers, but would have no chance to have any critical modifiers. If you want to go into the details of crafting with fossils, there's a great resource, Craft of Exile. I'll try and link it in the description, which has an emulator that you can sort of play around with and try and work out how the craft would best work with you. It's also got a calculator to help you calculate how to efficiently gain certain modifiers through using your fossil crafting. In general, if you're new to Delve, I probably wouldn't do this at all. I probably wouldn't use these at all, but these can all be sold as well. They're all tradable. So if you're in Trade League, then you can select the ones that are valuable and you can trade them. Interesting to note as well, if I go to the mine encampment, there is a resource here that Nico sells. If we go purchase items, you can see we can spend Azurite to buy some basic fossils and 3 of these resonators. So I'll talk a little bit about resonators if I go back into this tab. Resonators come in 4 flavors. There's a single slot one, a 2 slot one, a 3 slot one, and a 4 slot one. The 4 slot one cannot be bought from Nico, but it can be traded for on the market. effectively, all this does is allow you to put more fossils in the resonator. So what you would do is you would put the resonator into this slot, and you would put the fossils into the resonator. And you would you would right-click the resonator. You would click on your item, and it would reforge the item with the modifiers from the fossils. Generally speaking, if you're new, I wouldn't bother. If you don't have a plan, I wouldn't bother. But it can be, a nice way to experiment with things. As you can see here, I've got 221 primitive chaotic resonators. I've got 50 frigid fossils. If I just wanted to chaos an item so that it had more cold modifiers and no fire modifiers, a better way to do that rather than just doing raw chaos would be to use some of these chaotic resonators and just, see what you come up with. It can be very useful for early game if you've started Delve early. Generally speaking, late game crafting, you want to be a bit more deterministic than just having one, because it can be a little bit of a waste of fossils. Both fossils and resonators can be found pretty much anywhere in Delve. You've got a higher chance of getting them from the more valuable encounters and the lower down you go. You'll generally find resonator chests and things like that off the beaten path as well. So if you're heading into the darkness, you're exploring those dark areas, you find a resonator stash, pop up saying resonator stash on it. If you're breaking down a wall with dynamite, look for those resonator stashes. They're pretty much always valuable. Yeah, that's pretty much covers that. So once you reach maps, you'll be able to start unlocking Atlas points. There are 5 big nodes relating to Delve. Remember, you can click on the nodes to highlight them on the tree to make it easier to path to them. If you hover over them, you can see what they give you a bonus. For most of them just involve gaining you extra sulfite. If you listen to anyone talk about these nodes, you'll see this one packed with energy. You'll see that this grants you sulfite intoxication, which gives you increased damage and increased movement speed when you click a sulfite node in maps. Makes it much easier to complete the map and makes it much easier to gain more sulfite. In general, you can get all of these. They're all quite useful. None of them are bad necessarily. You don't need them all, so if you want to do other mechanics at the same time, then feel free to grab other mechanics. All of the subnodes just increase the chance to contain Nico, and because you path through this node here, you can also block other factors if you want to. I find you don't need to. Sulfite will just generally turn up every single time if you have all of the nodes. I'll talk a little bit about your endgame strategy. Delve is a mechanic that benefits from longer term thinking. If you are planning ahead, you will generally do better. There are a few key rules, like if you go deeper, your loot will be better. It's something to just always keep in mind. But also you want to reveal as much area as possible to give you a better chance of hitting those nodes that contain mana items, or nodes that contain minion items, or cold, lightning, fire items. The best way to do this really is just to head in a straight line. So you can see here that in my previous delving area, I cleared out this primeval ruins. Then I headed right. But I ended up in a dead end here, so I couldn't pass through this dead end here. But I just wanted to keep going right, so I pathed my way up to the nearest intersection that would keep me going right, and then I just headed straight right. And by doing this, I came into another primeval chamber. I headed right again, and you can see that as much as possible, I'm just trying to keep a straight line here. If you're farming for Azurite because you still need darkness resist, then do feel free to take the tier 2 and tier 3 nodes. Tier 1s I probably wouldn't bother. But yeah, just keep heading in that direction that you want to go. If your build is very strong and you can kill monsters instantly, kill bosses and such like instantly, then you can just go straight down pretty much. But you will have to just navigate your way around these impassable sort of corners here where there's just no way of breaking through. The thing that you're looking for as you're revealing these areas are, as I say, those mana nodes, these fossil nodes, the minion nodes, those sort of things. So occasionally as you're going through Delve, you will come across boss encounters. These boss encounters are unique to Delve. They show up as an icon on the map that shows you which kind of encounter you're going to get, and they only appear in these special biomes. So you find some in the Abyssal City. We've got the Lich's Tomb here, and there's one over here, the Crystal King's Throne in the Primeval Ruins. These are effectively the endgame bosses for Delve, and they have the biggest Delve specific rewards. So if I go to this one real quick, we can have a look at it. And then once you reach the node at the end, you'll get a portal appear. So this one's for the Primeval Citadel. I'm not going to go into strategy for killing the bosses. If you want the specific boss strategies, you probably want to see a different video. But I will just show you how this fight works. So this boss starts by doing a phase where he just runs around and tries to hit you. If you've got reasonable amounts of tank and reasonable amount of DPS, you can just fight him through this phase. Then goes into an invulnerability phase where he goes up on a little spire in the middle of the room. The objective here is to get the ghost that he spawns out of that spire to crash into the things on the side of the arena. As you do so, they will open up, and that will progress the fight. Once you reach the end of the fight, he will start channeling the balls, the little energy balls from those open rocks on the side, and he will start shooting laser beams at you. Laser beams do a ton of damage. I almost died. It's not good. Try and avoid them. Also, don't get hit at the end like I did. So the bosses can drop uniques, such as this one, Patembo's Mountain. These are specific to those bosses. Some bosses also have an altar in the arena like this one. If you click it, you get access to a bloodline ascendancy. You can pick these instead of, you can assign points into these instead of into your existing ascendancy tree. If you want to go into more detail about those, your build guide would have recommendations if you're following one, or you can just have a look at them and see whether they look like they would be better than your existing ascendancy class. In this case, this isn't one that was good for my class. And finally, to really optimize your play in Delve, you probably want to familiarize yourself with the biomes themselves, what can spawn in them, and how to get the best value out of them. A good resource for this is actually just the wiki page. It contains a image of what each biome looks like. It contains a name of the biome for your reference, and it contains what fossils you can find in that biome. If we're looking at the nodes themselves, there's also this area. ones that are particularly valuable right now because of the builds that people are playing are these Haunted Remains, which contain mana or curse items, or these minion ones here, which contain minion or aura items. If you're really trying to maximize your gain, those are a good place to start. But that pretty much covers it. So that's Delve in a nutshell. I hope you found some part of it interesting. Thanks very much for watching, and bye for now.